I was gonna stay or not. Hello, how are you? I really wish I was doing a craft right now instead of talking about, well, that sounds bad. I don't mean it like that. I just mean, I'm nervous. I'm gonna talk to you about the Lord for a second. Yeah. I just want to give a quick thought. It's something I feel like I'm supposed to share with you. And I only do this when I really feel like it's important, because I'm uber scared of coming off as a hypocrite. I don't even know where to start. There's so much information, and we're at it's such a weird time where we are right now, like in the world and with coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever you want to call it, that's fine. Everybody's under quarantine. We have way too much time to think and be by ourselves. Yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this, so we will stumble our way through. I guess I was going to start off by telling a quick, she's not here. I was looking for my dog. I want to tell a very quick story. Not quick. It's not going to be quick. We all know it's not going to be quick. I have a small Chihuahua. She's 6 pounds, 6.5 ounces. She's so tiny. Why big people always have small dogs is beyond me. I don't know. Anyway, so I got Faith when I was 21 in November. So like 6 years ago, 2013. Yeah, I don't know. I was married at the time, and it was really weird how it came about, because I already had a puppy who I begged and pleaded for. She was amazing. But Faith had the same markings as her, like on her face, and she was dark, and she's black, the black and tan markings on a dog. So my person at the time he sent me the link, and he was like, hey, look at this dog. She looks just like Daisy. Like, we should look into it. Long story short, we got her. And at first, we did not get along. She very much has like a cat personality. Like, she's good with being by herself. Like, she just wants to be petted and not a lot else. Like, she can do her own thing, And she picks certain people that she wants to snuggle up with. She's friendly with everyone, but she definitely has her favorites. Anyway, it's very ironic, and they named her Faith, the people who rescued her, and she was already going by that. So the name stuck because it would be ridiculous to change it. So there have been multiple times where this like ironic life lesson of, this faith the size of a mustard seed, blah blah blah. Let's just assume you know what that means. Jesus said that. He was like, all you need is faith the size of a mustard seed, and you're on the right track. And compared to my other dogs, she's a mustard seed. She's asleep. She's not coming over here. Anyway, so I don't know why I said that. Anyway, she's small. Her name is Faith. She's my best friend. I love that freaking dog. So the other night, 2 days ago, sorry, let me backtrack just a little. Told you it's not gonna be quick. She has a bad heart. She's getting old. And the doctor, the vet, a month ago, he was like, well, keep an eye on it, but she's just getting old, she's old. So take her back. She started getting a cough, like right after that visit. It was so weird. And I thought maybe it was a little kennel cough or something from just going to the vet's office. Excuse me. She gets a cough. It's been really bad, and I could hear her heart, like when she would get close to me. There she is now. Her heart was like crunchy sounding, like really bad. So we go back to the vet a couple days ago, and I almost didn't go, and I had a gut feeling, and I was like, even for my own peace of mind, I'm gonna go, because I'm not very jazzed about the vet that we go to. That's a whole nother story. Anyway, so good thing I went. Long story short there, she has heart disease. Her heart is enlarged. For a small dog, I mean, for anything, that's bad. Anything with a heart, that's no good. But for a 6-pound dog, that's really bad. So we get some drugs, and, you know, she's okay. Well, he's like, you know, she should be okay with the medicine. We'll keep an eye on it, da-da-da. So we get home, give her the first dose of medicine. She seems to be doing okay. We're getting ready to go to bed and wind down for the night. So we take him out. My sister takes him out one more time, come back in. She has a huge seizure. It lasted like 2 minutes. And if you've never seen your dog have a seizure, or anybody have a seizure, that shit is scary. Like, scary. I saw my mom have a heart attack one time, and that, I mean, just as bad. Like, anything like that, it will trigger you. And so now we're getting to the part where there's a point to come into place. So, like I said, this is a weird time for everyone, and for me too. I mean, to be very black and white here, I've really been struggling with my faith lately, and how, you know, I'm like, I don't get it. Like, I'm feeling very deserted in the wilderness, whether it's my fault or circumstantial, whatever. Not saying that God left me in the wilderness. That's not what I'm saying, because that's not his deal. It's more like I ran off, and then I'm just wandering in the woods, if that makes sense. So she has this huge seizure, and I know, like, you know, there's side, like, there's, you know, these natural things you have to do to keep them safe. And so I just, you know, you start pleading. You're like, oh my God, please, no. And I'm like, I need to pray for this dog. I pray for my dogs all the time. I don't know about y'all, but that's a thing. You can do that. You're allowed if you want. And I remember in that moment feeling like in this area, like all down to my stomach, like an empty shell. And it was like words were coming out of my mouth. I knew that I meant them, but in that moment, it was almost like an out of body experience, if that makes sense. And I just remember, like, I'm going to push through, because that's the only thing I know how to do. And I wouldn't classify myself as a baby Christian, because I grew up in the church. I accepted the Lord when I was like 6th grade or something. But I mean, it's not like it's my first day of praying is what I mean. But I was at a place where I already, like I said, feel stranded in the wilderness for whatever reasons. And then I'm in this situation where I literally have no other hope than God, or, you know. And I just cried out. And it wasn't even like a tearful, like wet cry, if that makes sense. It was from the most desperate place of my being. And I was like, please, God, not yet. I was like, please, like, I don't even know what I said. But I remember saying, I want more time. So she finally calms down, and she laid on the floor, like, she just, like, not in like a stiff position. Anyway, she kind of came to. We can finish that story later. That was the important part. But she came to, and she slept through the night, and it was horrific. But she came out of it okay. And this is like the 2nd or 3rd seizure she's had, but this was the worst. Like I said, it literally lasted like 2 full minutes. And that's a long time for somebody to be seasoned. So And that feeling and that realization of what happened has like stuck with me. And so then it brought me back to some prayer time I had like a week and a half ago with the Lord. And he was like, okay, now it's time for you to share with people. And I'm like, oh, there's a bug in my room. Oh, there's 2 bugs. So the Lord brought me to this alone in the wilderness desperation place, and that's the important part to take away from that. My dog is okay for now. Please pray for her if you want. So in this place, and then so yeah, place of desperation, the Lord brought me back to this Bible time or whatever we had the other day. I also want to insert this scripture from Exodus. I don't know if you're not a Christian or whatever, that's totally okay with me. But Moses is one of my favorite Bible characters. And because we get along, like we would have gotten along really well, because he fought God every step of the way. Me fought him every step of the way, questioned everything. And he says, in Exodus 4:10, he basically says, Lord, I am not eloquent. I'm from Buckingham. Some people hate when I make jokes about that. Lord, I am not eloquent, either in the past or since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and tongue. And the Lord then says, who gave man mouth, who made him mute or deaf, seeing, or, he's like, who is the creator here? And he says, go and I will be your mouth and teach you what to say. So God is a fan of the underdog, and he will help you. And that is one of the big things that I take away from Moses. And that also kind of jumps into this little nugget of wisdom. This is, I think, the important part. And I don't want to sound preachy here. Also, on another step back, my philosophy in life, or as I'm getting older and I realize this, I want my philosophy to be everyone to feel included at the table, like, love and acceptance and all that hippie stuff. That's truly what I want. I hate seeing, and I think too, like, I feel really blessed or lucky, how politically correct you want to be, that I grew up in a generation where, like, I went to school with black kids and Mexican kids and Indian kids and a couple of Koreans, and there was a nice melting pot of people. And I can see it, especially with my grandparents and my parents, like there's little like things here and there, and you're like, oh, don't like that. Their generation, not specifically my parents. Anyway, so I'm just saying, like, we've come a long way. It still bothers me that it's 2020. We have way bigger issues than petty stuff like somebody's, skin color or origin. That's not what this is about. I mean, I guess it kind of can be, but yeah. So my philosophy in general is just, I want everyone to feel included, like they have a place and, love and blah, 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 blah. And I try to live up to that. I know I'm not perfect and I make mistakes, and there's a lot of people that I would send flying under the bus. See, nobody's perfect. Not even the servants of the Lord. Anyway, Moses. So, the Lord gave me these little nuggets, and he says, this is, I truly believe that this is from the Lord, and I feel like I really feel like I'm taking a step of faith here and saying this in a bold way, because I think now is the time that people realize that and realize they have a place at the spiritual table. And I think for so long there's been people who feel like they don't. I might catch some flack, and I don't care. I'm going to start with this. I remember I don't remember the year. It was several years ago, and there was that mass shooting in Florida at the gay club. And I remember seeing that on the news, and I cried. And that was the first time that I remember, like, a tragedy happened, and it affected my country. It affected, my generation and, whatever. And it just hurt. And I couldn't even explain the hurt. And I just remember crying about it. And then I remember seeing this program on TBC, I don't know, that Christian TV channel, and the old white guy, and he had some smart ass comment about how it was the Lord's will for that man to do that. And I'm like, baby, what Bible were you reading? I don't know that. No. And I was like, my spirit was like inflamed after, like, I was angry, and then I was mad because I was like, So of course I remember praying about it, and I was like, this has me all shooken up. Like, I don't know what is wrong. Like, I was like, God, that bothered me. That cannot be right. What is the deal? Whatever. I also like to be very blunt when I pray. You can do that. I mean, within reason, But if you have a point to get across, if you have to, like, use layman terms, like, I think that's okay. So I was like, God, I don't understand. What is the deal with this? And he very calmly, like, dealt with me about it. And I remember specifically that time. And he told me, he was like, your job is to love people and accept them. What people do, and he didn't, like, this is me. What people do behind closed doors, that's on them. That's on them and God. What I do in my house, my sins in my house, that's between me and him. That's not between me and my mom. It's not between me and my sisters. I mean, whatever. If we want to have a conversation about it, we can. But I'm an adult now. My guilt and my sins and my choices are between me and him, not between anybody else. So that, and it doesn't even need to get to a point where you're categorizing somebody's life choices of a sin or not. It doesn't matter. It don't matter if somebody is gay, cross-dressing, or out here murdering people. If I steal a lip balm from Walmart, we on the same level. So that shuts it down right there. And I think, and that's the biggest point he wanted to get across from me at that time. He was like, that shouldn't even be on the discussion board because he will handle that. And that's what he told me. He said, that's for me to worry about. You on the earth, you just need to take care of each other as sheep on the earth, And that, like, so, I don't really know where I was going with that. That's one more time where he's reiterated this message for me, and I feel like I need to share it, because I think I made a video of that, too. I think I did. Because people need to hear these things, and they're not hearing it at church, and they're not hearing it on the media and whatever. So I think what I'm trying to get at is this message is for, those baby Christians or people who are Christians and they don't identify as one because they feel like they can't. And anyway, so that for adult Christians, your job is not to, obviously you're guide and you learn and whatever. So that brings me to this part. The first little bullet point is, unbelievers, and then like slash new Christians, and even old Christians, whatever. We don't have to categorize that too. We don't have to keep putting people in bubbles. Ugh. First of all, the first thing you have to do is accept that there's a spiritual realm. Because the Lord is not a church. And people say that, Christians say that, preachers say that, but they don't, a lot of people don't live it out to its full extent. Its full extent is loving somebody no matter what. No matter if they're gay, or if they eat cilantro, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Just be freaking nice to them. I'm going to keep beating that horse. I'm sorry. The first bullet point, acceptance of the spiritual realm. And the acceptance works both ways. And that meaning you have to accept God for what He is. He is a big, confusing, loving spirit being. So you have to you have to get all that gunk of hymnals and creaky church boards and pews and, like weird cult Christian preachers. You have to get all that out of your head. Because when this all started, people were just roaming around like they were roaming around naked in the garden. They were not putting on suits and singing in the choir. We did that. We ruined that. It started out walking around in the desert, people gathering outside, and that's what we need to get back to. I mean, we can't right now because of quarantine, but the idea of it being more about God's spirit and His energy and His principles rather than it being about the building you're in. And a lot of people have a hard time they're like, no, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm hypocrites, and I get it. I've definitely not been to church because I felt uncomfortable. And I don't mind saying that I'm a Christian, but I have tattoos, I work at a bar. I mean, there are stigmas of things. So you have to accept the spiritual realm. Then it works both ways. That means that the Lord accepts you how you are. No questions asked. I mean, I'm sure with some people he probably has a couple of questions, but he's the big guy. He can do that. So it works both ways. And that's a big thing for some people. And it's still a big thing for me, if we're, talking candidly. You have to accept that. If you accept that this is coming from a spiritual place, a place that you can't see. I know this sounds silly, but it's going to sound so nerdy. I'm sorry. You almost have to think of it like the Force. Or like in Brave, the Disney movie. when she sees those little light bugs and they pop through the woods and she follows them, the Lord will use your gut, the gut feeling. That's part of your spirit. Your whole body is intertwined together. I think some people think it's your spirit and your flesh, and they're in two different compartments. No, they're intertwined, webbed together, like roots, of a tree. I mean, I could go on for days about that. I love that analogy. Anyway, so you have to have that underlying acceptance. And that's the hardest part of faith, is believing in the unknown. But with that acceptance, that's when you get into the good stuff, the forgiveness, and God's forgiveness will wash out shame. And I didn't experience shame in my Christianity up until like the past few years. And then when it hits you, it's like, oh, this hurts. It does not feel good. Like, you feel like trash. And that's not God's intentions. He wants you to get away from whatever it is that made you feel like trash. And he also, like, is not the kind of God that just keeps bringing back up your wrongs and whatever it is you've done in the past. If that keeps happening, that's because you just haven't dealt with it. And it's okay to forgive yourself. It's really hard, but it's okay to do that. And sometimes you just have to have time. And he is so patient, like, so patient. I mean, the Israelites were in the desert for 40 years. Oh, he's pretty patient. Hopefully it doesn't take you 40 years to forgive yourself. Anyway, that's the biggest. So those two things work together. You have to accept that there's this spiritual realm and that God is not, you know, like I said, in the church or, you know, whatever. And I know, like, some Christians are going to come at me and be like, oh, well, you need the body of Christ. You do, but you can't take somebody who didn't grow up in church and you can't just dunk them in the, it just doesn't work like that. The real world does not work like that. It doesn't. It should start small. And some people, you know, they have these miraculous stories, and I love that. Like, that's amazing. If God does a quick 180 in your life, that's amazing. You should revel in it, tell people. But most of the lessons and most of the growth that God takes you through takes time. And you're going to go up a step and you're going to fall down, and you're going to keep doing that 20 times until you get it. And once you get in the Bible, you're going to realize things like, oh, this has happened before. Like, I've read this before. Because he has the patience. He repeats things. He keeps giving it to you because he knows that it takes time. There's so many, like, analogies and stuff in the Bible, and he uses, like, a parent, child one, shepherd and sheep all the time. I don't know if I've never been around sheep, but also going back to, like, my dog. It takes time to train a dog. You have to keep doing things over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And even when you think they have it, you wake up one morning and there's poop in the living room. And you don't throw them into the gates of hell. You just give them a treat and keep on going. And that's what he wants. When you screw up, that's like you being a dog in the pearly gates, pooping on the rug. He's not going to kick you out. He's going to help you clean up the mess. He's probably just going to clean up the mess altogether by himself. And that is probably, and I know that's a really gross analogy, but it's one that most people can understand. And it's taken me a really long time to realize that for myself. And if the world is going down into the dumps, which, I mean, it is if you read scripture and whatever and you come at it from that angle, I just want people to know that I'm here for you. I love the underdog. I'm an underdog. I'm probably under the underdog. But whatever. I know at the end of the day that God loves me. And I believe that his spirit is in me. It's in the trees. It's in people. And that's why we connect. It's in everything. And he is all around you. And it's okay to be a big fat screw up. I'm right here with you, honey. We got t-shirts on the way. But I encourage people to read the story of Moses. He's one of my favorites. I go back and I like to read them all the time because I can identify myself in that. Also, he's wild. Like, he is wild. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. 35 minutes later. Sorry. I don't want to be preachy or whatever, but I always thought too, like, it, and you and you can see it in people when it gets down to the nitty gritty, how people react and what they say, and they will casually talk about God. And that's where the good stuff is. Because when you get down to that desperate, like, gut-wrenching moment and you have no other options, I mean, you should always be able to call on him, but that's where growth is. When you're down at the very last bottom. And even if you don't, I honestly, like, that night when Faith was on the floor, I felt so empty and so scared. And I felt like I was just speaking it into the wind. But he, like I said, his Holy Spirit is there in the wind, and he will hear you and help you. And she's still asleep. She's fine now. So there's hope. And I know this is all over the place, but I hope you can take something from it. And tonight is Passover. If you watch this today, it's Wednesday, April 8th. Yeah. So that's a good time to just say a quick little prayer. Yeah. And you can always, I've been in this situation so many times. Like, I feel like my whole relationship with Christ is like this. You just get to a point, wherever you are, it doesn't matter where you are. If you're singing in the choir, rambling the tambourine, or if you're out in the desert, strung out on a 3-day bender. If you just need to pause and say, hey, he will accept that. Obviously, like, when you get into it and you start learning and growing, he's going to deal with you on issues. He doesn't want you to always be strung out on a 3-day bender. Nobody does. But he will give you that time and patience that you need to work on it. And pretty soon, you know, you'll be just building arcs and getting people out of the desert. Probably not. But it'll help you pay your rent. You know what I'm saying? The main thing is, I just want people to know that if you feel like you don't fit the mold to be a Christian, that's okay. Because today's ideal of Christianity is, quite frankly, in my opinion, ridiculous. I don't like mega churches. It scares me. And for some people it works. And that's fine. It doesn't really work for me. And that's the beauty of it. He's so big, there's room for everybody. And there's room at my table. So if you have questions, or you want to talk, or if you don't want to talk, that's fine with me too. Just know that you have somebody on your side as the underdog. Yeah. I think I've said all I need to say. So just remember, if you poop on the floor, it's okay. Please don't poop on the floor. Have a good night.